keep it give it a pulse in the water.
Right, it'll actually form like a little cone. When it gets done, it'll look like a little cone, like an ice cream cone, you know, and that causes that hackle to just sort of naturally flare around it. And when that hackle, because of its natural taper, is going to close back up around it like that, it'll trap air pockets in there, just like an emerger's coming out of it shut. And I think that's a big thing that the fish see, is that gas bubble. And I really don't want to squeeze and press this up, because I actually want it a little spiky, because every bit of that hair that builds up in there is actually going to help create little pockets of gas and such. So now what I'll do is, once I've got a little ball in there, and I don't make too pronounced a one, just enough to where, you know, this hackle's going to stop back. I'm going to fold that back and try and keep it in the same orientation in the hook shank. And I just tie me up some wraps from the eye back and build me up right up against to where that thing's tied in right there. And then what I do is I take the extra step, a whip finish in it, or you could half hitch or whatever, but I always a whip finisher too, and I'll show you why here in a minute. And the reason I like to do that is because I know this thread is not going to slip off when I make and wrap this tender hackle. It's pretty tough once it's tied in the water, but when that stem will get away on you so quick. That's why I just lock my thread down, and I don't use the bobbin holder when I'm going to wrap this hackle. There's the little pliers I had in here. I like these because they're round tipped and they don't got no serrations on the jaw, so they're really good. If you can find you a little bitty set like that that's smooth, it won't break the tips on you. Now I go in there about that far and grab a hold of right at the center stem of that hackle. I'll moisten my fingers just a little bit just to get a better grip on this fibers and get them flowing back behind like that. And some people will strip one side off completely, and if you want a more sparse fly, you can do that. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to actually wrap the hackle, but I like it a little fuller, so I just always don't fool with it. Make two wraps. When I come back around the top, I'm going to stroke them back too again. I think it really helps if you give them another pull back. And I'm fussy about this collar, so I'm going to take my time and get it to where I'm happy with it before I lash it down. Okay. If you put your finger there, you'll notice it makes this bobbin keep from getting away on you, because you're right on that drop, on that bend of that where that hook eye is. So it's easy for that thing to just slip right off. But here, the fact that it's locked, it ain't really going anywhere. It might slip a little bit, but you lock it down, it ain't going very far at all. So you don't have to worry about it. That's one of the hardest parts, just clipping that right there. Take it. And you wind up with a little bit of, but sometimes what you can not worry about, or you can get rid of now if you have to, if you're not afraid that you're going to clip your thread. I'll try and fold them back and just make me a nice, neat little head. I don't want to go back too far on it. If you go back up against where you got that little thorax too far, it'll actually cause that hackle to kind of compress, and you'll actually draw back the length of it, which if your hackle fibers are a little long, it'll help scrunch them down some, but I just try and get right up against it, and that's where I quit.
Yeah, it seems like if you mash them down too much, they lose their pulse, or
well, it'll actually sort of move them around in there, and it'll press them down. I'll get to where just over the bend of that little head on there and make me about 4 wraps on a whip finish. Like I said, everybody's got their own ideas about that, and I don't think there's a wrong idea as long as you secure that thread down. And I always just roll it back. Make sure them thread wraps just lay down nice and flush. And the scissors getting dull. Before I put any glue on this thing, I want to make sure these things are where I want them, in the right sort of spread out and in the right orientation, because even though these are softer, webbier fibers, they will wick up some of that glue, which is a good thing. You want them to wick up a little bit of it because it'll just cause them to set basically the way you want. I actually left this one a touch long, but I don't think the fish really care all that much. A lot of people say, well, they shouldn't be more than 1.5 times the bend and all that other, but that's typically about the length that I leave.
To get them shorter, you're going to use a different feather, or you're just going to strip a little more off?
You can strip a little bit more off of it because they do taper and get shorter towards the tip, but you don't necessarily have to. You know, if you really fuss over the hides that you get, you know, or if you're going to order one, tell them, hey, I want something that's got a lot of 14s in it, you know, or whatever, you know, smaller ones. A lot of them, if you don't fuss over, you're going to get 12s and bigger, you know. But